Shalom to all. Today's daf is Yerushalmi Brachot daf Nun Aleph. We are starting Nun Amud Beis on the bottom with the brand new halacha, and in the Vilna Tzura daf it's Lamed Hey Amud Aleph with the brand new halacha. And today's daf is sponsored Le'ili Nishmas Mars Miriam Sarah Basar Yaakov Maisha. Her neshama should have an aliyah. And halacha Hey says, the Mishnah tells us Hayu Rechav Al Chamar. A person is riding on a donkey and it's time for him to daven. So Yerid, he should go off the donkey and daven. It's not proper to be riding on the donkey while he's davening. He should have his feet firmly planted on the ground as he's davening. However, if he's not able to go down, there's no one to hold the donkey for him, so Yachzer Panav, he should turn his face towards the proper direction. If he's not able to turn his face, so Yechavin his liba connected base Kachi HaKadoshim, he should direct his heart and his thoughts and his mind towards the Kodesh Kodashim. Let's say he's sitting on a boat, or on a raft. He should direct his heart towards the Kodesh HaKodashim. Over here we're assuming he's not able to stand up and he's not able to turn towards the Kodesh HaKodashim is, so therefore he should just focus his mind and his heart towards the Kodesh Kodashim. And the Gemara tells us, Tani, we have a brayso, he's riding on a donkey. If he has someone to hold on to his donkey while he davens, so he should descend from the donkey and daven down below. But if not, if there's no one to hold the donkey for him, he should daven where he is sitting on the donkey. Now Rabbi says, either which way, he should daven where he is, because his heart is going to be settled that way. Even if he has someone to watch the donkey for him, he's going to be worried that he's losing travel time, now that he had to pause and go to the side and stop and daven, so therefore he can daven while he's sitting on the donkey. Now Rav Yudim Apazi B'Shem Reb Shuv and Levi tells us, halacha k'Rabbi, the halacha is like Rabbi. And Nun Alpha Amud Alpha on top, the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yaakov Bar Acha, Tanoit Haman. They teach over there in Bavel, L'chol haruchos ein machzirin. We don't turn a person away, no matter which direction he's davening towards. Chutz meruch mizraches, except for the eastern direction. This is talking about a person that doesn't know which direction to daven towards, so he's davening in any direction, so it doesn't make a difference where he davens. It could be north, south, or west, that's fine. But if he's davening towards the east, then we're going to turn him in a different direction. That's because idol worshippers daven towards the east. And where do we see this? Because Amar Rav Yossi bar Avin, B'tchila originally, the pasuk tells us, Achireim al Heichal Hashem, their backs were towards the Heichal of Hashem, Upneim Kedma, and their faces were towards the east. V'heim Mishtachvim Kedma L'Shemesh, and they bowed eastward towards the sun. So we see that when Am Yisrael was doing Chatayim, their backs were towards the Heichal, and they were facing the east. They were facing the rising sun, so a person shouldn't daven towards the east. Now, Tani, we have a brayso, Sumo, Misha en Yachal Chavenis Ruchais, person who's blind, or someone who doesn't know what that direction is, Hare Ilu Mispalin Klape Lamalon, they should daven upwards, meaning they should direct their tefillas upwards. Shenemar says in the pasuk, Vespalu El Hashem, and they should daven to Hashem. Ha'imdim Mispalin B'chutz La'aretz, those that are standing and davening in Chutz La'aretz, Ha'ifchenes Paneim Klape Eretz Yisrael, they should turn their faces, they should be in direction towards Eretz Yisrael. And Umatam, what's the source for this? As the pasuk says, Vespalu Elecha Derech Artzam Asher Nosata Lavaisam, and they shall daven to you towards their land that you gave to their forefathers. So daven towards Eretz Yisrael if you're in Chutz La'aretz. Now, people that are standing and davening in Eretz Yisrael, they should turn their faces towards Yerushalayim. And Umatam, what's the source? As the pasuk says, and they'll daven to you towards the city that you chose. Those that are standing in Yerushalayim and davening, they turn their faces towards Harabayas. Shneimar, the pasuk says, those that are on Harabayas davening, they turn their faces towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Umatam, what's the source for that? As the pasuk says, and as the pasuk continues and says, Va'ato tishma el machan shiftecha, and you will hear in your dwelling place, El HaShamayim, in the heavens, V'shamata v'salachta, and you will hear and you're going to forgive. Nimtzu, now it turns out from everything that we just said, Ha'imdim b'tzafayin, those who are standing in the north, Pneim l'darim, they're facing south. Ha'imdim l'darim, those who are standing in the south, Pneim l'tzafayin, they're facing north. Ha'imdim b'mizrach, those who are standing in the east, Pneim l'mayrav, they're facing west. And l'mayrav, those that are standing in the west, Pneim l'mizrach, their faces are towards the east. Nimtzu, Kol Yisrael Mispalin el Makam Echad, turns out that all of Am Yisrael is davening towards one place. Hadahi dechsev, that's what it says in the pasuk. Ki beisi beis tefillah yikare l'chol ha'amim, and the understanding of this pasuk is that my house, which is referring to the Beis Hamikdash, is the focal point of tefillah for everyone. Everyone's facing towards the Beis Hamikdash. And a similar Joshua, Amar B'Shuv ben Levi, he quotes a pasuk, Hu ha'heichal lifnai. Now literally this pasuk means this is the heichal in front. However, the drasha is not lifnai, but it's lifanim. And how do we understand that? Heichal shekal hapanim apanim loi. It's the heichal that all faces turn towards it. Now the Gemara says, Ad kedain bibinyanai. This is all when the Beis Hamikdash is built. So we know that you're supposed to be turned towards the Beis Hamikdash. But b'churbanim minayin, how do we know that one is supposed to be turned towards the Makam Hamikdash even after it's destroyed? So Rav Avin says, the pasuk tells us, Banui l'talpiyos. Literally that means built as a landmark. But how do we understand this pasuk? The drasha is, tail shakal hapias mispalin elov. It's the mound that all mouths daven regarding it, meaning the word talpias is broken up into tail and pias. And when do mouths daven regarding it? Bebracha, bekriyas shma, betfila. Bracha means in berachas hamazon. Kriyas shma is in berachas kriyas shma, and tefila is in Shemona Esrei. Bebracha, where do we daven for the Beis Hamikdash and benching? B'nai Yerushalayim. Betfila, in Shemona Esrei, where do we daven for Beis Hamikdash? Elokei David u'B'nai Yerushalayim. As an aside, according to the Yerushalmi, Es Samach David and B'nai Yerushalayim were together, because nowadays we don't have this in our Shemona Esrei. And bekriyas shma, berachas kriyas shma, where do we daven for this? Peiris sukkah shalom aleinu v'al Am Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Now we're going to discuss the Shechina in the Makam HaMikdash. Kasav Echad Omer, one pasuk says, Eilech v'ashuv el mekaymi, I'm going to go and return to my place. Because of Echad Omer, another pasuk says, V'hayu einai v'libi sham kol hayamim, and my eyes and heart will be there all days. So it seems to be that we have a stira. On one hand, it seems to be that Hashem went back to his place and the Shechina is not by the Makam HaMikdash anymore. On the other hand, it seems to be that Hashem's eyes and heart are always there. Ha-Ketzad, how do we sort out these psukim? Panav Lamala, Hashem's face is up, is back in Shemayim, so to speak. But Ve'eno V'libai Lamata, his eyes and heart are down below. Hashem is, so to speak, focusing his eyes and his heart on the Makam HaMikdash, so the Shechina is still there in some form. It says in the Mishnah of Yom-Lav that if a person can't physically turn towards where he should, he should direct his heart and his mind and his thoughts towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now the Gemara asks, Le'eza Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, towards which Kodesh HaKadoshim? We know that there's a Kodesh HaKadoshim in this world, but then there's also Beis HaMikdash Lamala up in Shemayim. So towards which Kodesh HaKadoshim should he be focusing his thoughts and his mind? So Rabbi tells us, Keneged Kodesh HaKadoshim Shel Malon, towards the upper Kodesh HaKadoshim. Rav Shimon ben Chalafta Amar, he says, Keneged Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim Shel Maton, the one in this world. And Rav Pinchas says, Lai Pligin, they're not arguing. Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim Shel Maton, Mechuvin Keneged Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim Shel Malon. The Kodesh HaKadoshim down here is aligned with the Kodesh HaKadoshim up in Shemayim. How do we know this? The pasuk tells us, Machain l'shivtecha. Literally, this means the foundation of your dwelling place. But how do we understand the word machain? Mechuvan kineged shivtecha. It is aligned kineged your dwelling place up in Shemayim. Now that we have mentioned the Beis Hamikdash, so we continue talking about that. Har HaMoriah. What's the understanding of Har HaMoriah? Why is it called that? So Rav Chia Ruba and Rabbi Yanai, they both argue about this. Chad Amar, one of them says, Shemisham Hayraya Yaitzel Olam. From there, from the Beis Hamikdash, is where Psak Hayra'ah comes out to the world. We know the Sanhedrin sat in the Beis Hamikdash. Chad Amar, and the other one says, Shemisham Yira Yaitzel Olam. That's where fear goes out into the world. So Har HaMoriah could either be Hayraya or it could be Yira. Arayin, what's the understanding of the word Arayin? So Rav Chia Ruba and Rabbi Yanai, they both argue about this. Chad Amar, one of them says, Shemisham Ayra Yaitzel Olam. From there, light goes out to the world. Chad Amar, one of them says, Shemisham Arira Yaitzel Olam. From there, curse or affliction goes out to the world if a person doesn't keep to the Torah, which is in the Aron. And lastly, Nun Aleph Beis on top of the Gemara says Devir. What's the understanding of Devir, which is another word for Beis Hamikdash? Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yanai, they argue about this. Chad Amar, one of them says, Shemisham Dever Yaitzel Olam. From here, pestilence and plague comes into the world. B'char Amar, the other one says, Shemisham Dibras Yaitzel Olam. From here, commands go out into the world. I would say the Mishnah Hayesh B'Sfina Oy Ba'asta Yechaven Esliba Keneged Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. If a person's sitting on a boat or on a raft, so he should direct his heart towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Gemara clarifies, He Asta, He Askaria, He Rafsaidais. In Asta, Askaria, and Rafsaidais are all the same thing. They all mean a raft. The pasuk tells us, Uviyim L'cha Rafsaidais Al Yam Yafai. And we shall bring them to you as rafts on the Yafo Sea. And moving on to brand new halacha vav. The Mishnah tells us, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Ein tfilas hamusafin el bechever ir. Musaf is only daven bechever ir, which means betzibur. A tzibur davens musaf, but a yachid doesn't daven musaf. The Chachamim say, bechever ir v'shalai bechever ir. Whether there's a tzibur or there's not a tzibur, everyone's got to daven musaf. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Mishmai, Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, meaning in Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's name, meaning Rabbi Yehuda has a different understanding of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's shita, that kol makam sheyesham chever ir, any place where there is a chever ir, any place where there's a tzibur, so a yachid pater mitfilas hamusafin, a yachid is pater from davening musaf, that's because he's yaitse with the shliach tzibur. However, according to the way Rabbi Yehuda understands Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, if there is no chever ir, there is no tzibur davening, so then a yachid would have to daven musaf. And now the Gemara tells us, Rav Bibi b'shem Rav Chana Amar, halacha Rav Yehuda sha'amar b'shem Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the halacha is like Rav Yehuda b'shem Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And also the Shmuel Amar Kain, the following thing of Shmuel is the same thing. The Shmuel Amar, Shmuel said, Ana min yoimai loit salas to musafa. I, in my entire life, never daven musaf. That's because the tzibur is always davening. El Achatzman, except for one time, the Mizbrid Reish Galusa, the son of the Reish Galusa died, but the Tzibur did not end up davening, yes, so I daven Musaf myself. However, the Gemara says, Milehin Rabbanan Pligin, the following thing the Rabbanan argues with this, meaning the following is a different understanding of the Tanna Kama's opinion, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Demar Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi b'Shem Rab Shimon Chasida, he says, B'roim u'b'kayatzim hamasnisa. Our Mishnah, meaning in the ratio of our Mishnah, when we said that Musaf is only b'chever ir, mashma the Yechidim don't daven Musaf, that's only talking about shepherds, which are royim, and kayatzim are people that are involved in the fig harvest and fig processing. And again, as a clarification, loy amar el b'royim b'kayatzim. That's only said by royim and kayatzim. They're pater from Musaf because they're in an area where there is no tzibur b'chlal. Hashar kol adam chayavin. However, other people are chayav to daven Musaf. So this understanding of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is a little bit different. It's that Musaf is only said in a place where there's a tzibur. So shepherds who are in an area without a tzibur don't need to daven Musaf. However, Yechidim, in a city where there's a tzibur, they have to daven Musaf. And also Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kain, the following thing from Rabbi Yochanan says just like this, Demar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan says, Ani re'isi es Rabbi Yanai oimer mispal b'shuk shel Tzipairin. I saw Rabbi Yanai standing and davening shachres in the marketplace of Tzipairin, u'mahalch dalad amos u'mispal shel Musaf, and then he walked dalad amos and he davened Musaf. Now, v'ain chever ir b'Tzipairin, is there no chever ir in Tzipairin? Of course there is. And we see that even though there's a chever ir, a yachid still needs to daven. In Achma Aminah class, you learn three things from the statement. Achma Aminah, first of all, you learn the shel Tzipairin b'Tzipairin, meaning the shuk of Tzipairin has the same din as Tzipairin itself. Even though the shuk is outside of the city, it's still considered to be part of the city. That means that when a person's in the shuk of a place that has a tzibur, it's as if they're in a place that has the tzibur, even though the shuk is outside of the city. And the second thing, non beis amar alpha on top, Achma Aminah, you see from here that chalukan al Rabbi Yehuda sha'ar mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, they argue on Shitas Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He had said that if there's a tzibur, a yachid does not need to daven. Here we see from what Rabbi Yanai did that even though there's a tzibur, a yachid does need to daven. And lastly, Achma Aminah, you see from here, sha'adam espalel, a person can daven, u'mahalach arba amos, and then should walk dalad amos, u'mispal shel Musaf, and can daven Musaf. And the reason why a person would need a break in between the two tefillas is because a person needs to be able to separate between the two tefillas. He needs to be able to move his mind and concentration from shachris to Musaf, so therefore he should walk dalad amos. Now, Amar Rabbi says, it's not ultimately that he has to walk dalad amos, el afilu shaha kadehi lacharba amos, even if he just waited the amount of time it would take him to walk dalad amos, that's also sufficient, and he could daven Musaf after that. We're going to stop here for the day, pick up tomorrow, continuing to talk about davening. For now, everyone should have a wonderful day.